Hello Gleeks, it is Winky Gleek and welcome to the first video of my fan fiction. So it is officially the second day of spring break and I am so excited to share with you today's content. So I will show you the book cover and warnings. So once you see the warnings, like if there's something you don't like, you can obviously click off. I will also share with you the introduction and the first chapter. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Alrighty, so this is the book cover. So the title is Until Today, a Lamb's fan fiction story by me, obviously. So it contains moments and stuff from Hamilton, an American musical, animatics, comic dubs, incorrect quotes, in real life letters / mention of events, others, and of course my imagination. Obviously gotta have this go to someone. My best friend was the first person I successfully introduced to Hamilton. So Sammy, this is for you. Warning, there's lots of language, there's mention of violence, blood, death, and suicide, and adult topics. And for those who are not friendly to LGBTQ plus goers, this is not a title for you because there is a lot of that. It is not intended to affect the real story of Hamilton or the musical in any way. This is just my own take on it / my own story. Also, there are lyrics from the musical. I use them as just regular old quotes as if they are talking, and unless it is not that, they are the songs, but I am not trying to steal it. No copyright infringement is intended. Only the stuff italicized is real parts from the letters from Hamilton to Lawrence. The draft is in parts. Sorry, that's for other people who have access to this. And then obviously I have all my credits to those of pictures I have taken. Introduction. Cold in my professions, warm in my friendships. I wish, my dear Lawrence, it might be in my power, by action rather than words, to convince you that I love you. Alexander Hamilton to John Lawrence, dated April 1779. Lawrence perspective. My dearest Alexander, this is a piece of the letter you wrote me many, many years ago. I always struggled with my feelings towards you, and I always mirrored your affections, kept them close and secret between us and in our forbidden letters to each other. I love you so much, Alexander. With our world's climate, I couldn't open up. Until today, John Lawrence. Hamilton's perspective. My dearest Lawrence, I wrote this letter to you a very long time ago. The Revolutionary War was upon us, but it was never the reason why I wrote this poetic. I undoubtedly looked you over in the bar where we first met. My feelings were natural, but I had never had this feeling more than I did for you. You were my final thoughts as I died, and I thought I could never be with you because it wasn't you. It was me, or my family, or God, the war, or anything else that could have possibly kept us apart. Until today, Alexander Hamilton. My interruption perspective. Alexander Hamilton wrote John Lawrence cold in my professions back before he met Eliza Schuyler. Yes, it may have been wartime, but I believe these two were highly in love. Historians don't know what to make of these two, given everyone was sentimental and no one really knew when they'd see their loved ones, friends, or family again. No one knew if they'd see the daylight of the following day, so historians can't understand if it was just true feelings or just final wishes to one another. What I would personally say about this is just let them be them, and the proof is all there in the poetic letters. Also in Ron Chernow's biography of Alexander Hamilton, which the musical was based off of, said that after Lawrence died, Hamilton never opened up as much to any other man as he had done to Lawrence. Honestly, it's nice to know a founding father could be / is LGBTQ+, like some of the beautiful people found in America today. Me. And then I had found this super cute picture online. Chapter 1. Let this be the first chapter. Hamilton's perspective. No, you can't just leave us. Think of your children, James, my mother had pleaded. Alexander and Junior, they need you. I'm leaving. I don't care about the children. You'll have my debt. Good night, Rachel, my father declared. My mother begged for him to stay, on her knees once a night every week, asking for him to stay. And one day he finally left, never to be seen again. I was only 10 years old. I wasn't an only child. James Hamilton Jr. was my brother, yet more lazy and less intelligent. I did most of the work around the house, helping Mother while she tried to keep the debt to a minimum and everything in line. I didn't have much of an education, yet I was very smart for my young age. I wished for so much more, and I had such big dreams, yet little to no money, no real standing house, and no way out. 2 years later, a plague filled our space. I was weak, restless, and scared for my life. The doctor said that I might barely make it. I knelt by my mother's bedside. Her limping hand reached up for my face. Take care of yourself, Alexander. Be true, speak your mind, and don't throw away your shot. Those stuck in my mind forever. They were her final words. A storm of sadness clouded my vision, and pain struck my heart as a sword would have gone through my chest. One last tear streamed down her pale face. She closed her eyes, and the wind of her final breath blew past my ear. I yelled and screamed in the streets for a doctor for hours on end. Maybe they can bring her back, I thought. I thought wrong. Soon after those events, I moved in with my cousin. He wasn't the greatest, but he was family, so that was enough for me. Mother's words stuck with me, which encouraged me to finally get a job and do something with my useless life. I was gonna work to pay off Father's leftover debt, pay for supplies and food, and finally I might be able to get out of this dump. Most times I stole from the merchants or I begged for money from the women and their husbands who passed by. Who knew it'd work? I'd often ask myself, but it was time to change that and be honorable. I went to our landlord, Mr. Johnson, for the job. He owned a trading company. It didn't make much, but it should help. For a few months on my charter, I spent trading sugar cane and supplies to the merchants, and I looked at the towering ships they used to bring their stuff everywhere. Snack. Get back to work, boy, Mr. Johnson scolded. Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. I remember dreaming of another far-off land. What if I snuck onto a ship and sailed away from the Caribbean? I sold the specialty spiced rum and more for the rest of the day before I went home to study and count my earnings for the day. I couldn't even afford what I sold, but I could only dream of the day when that would come, and I finally could. Then I opened the cracked wooden door to see horror. I screamed as loud as I could, and I kneeled down to the ground. A rope hung from the ceiling, a noose around his neck. Bloody and dark spots on the floor in the nearby space. A chair was knocked over underneath. I knew no one else did this but him. Suicide. First my father, then my mother, then my cousin. Days after work, I sat tired and alone, dripping next to a dripping candlelight. A small desk and my writings were smudged with ink and sat wet from the frequent raining sessions from day to day. Nothing made sense anymore. Nothing. But when Mother was here, everything made sense. A voice whispered inside to me. It called to me. A voice that kept saying, Alex, you gotta fend for yourself. But I had been doing that. Maybe it was finally time to let go of my past and face the tides. In the meantime, I read every book, letter, and poem I could find. I tried to learn more, but something was still empty inside. 2 to 3 years later, many streets had been empty as citizens fled in search of a safe space during the storms. Lightning had struck houses and fires brewed among the streets. Winds threw us into walls, bruising our backs and sides. We couldn't seem to make it through. It came. The hurricane. The hurricane ripped off the roofs and ferocious gusts broke down doors. Carriages and horses were swept off their feet and many streets were flooded. Then it stopped. I glanced up to see a yellow sky. A flash of light came down from above and it almost struck me, but something stopped it. The following gap of quiet made it eerie. The eye of the storm, I whispered to myself. I wondered if I'd ever live to see my future, but in that second, my dreams, my wishes, my fulfillment, it all seemed to wash away. I blinked and I saw a hand reach. I tried to reach back, but something pulled me away. The waters arose and the waves engulfed me. I tried to survive as the water dragged me down and I gasped for air. And I was pulled down farther. I always managed to pull through. I couldn't seem to die. When the storm finally passed, I used my dry leftover writing sheets and began to write my story. Poets and scholars of the new colonies had picked up my words and spread it like wildfire. People began saving their dollars, picking up every coin they could find, and give it all to me because they were moved by my story. My story. Months later, I was packing my supplies, leftover scraps I'd collected, and bags upon bags. It was finally time to leave this horrible place. I'm heading for a better place, Mom. Don't worry. I thought I'd never get out until today. Thank you so much for coming to this audiobook session with me, and thank you for allowing me to introduce this first part of my fan fiction to you guys. I hope you enjoyed, and please come back tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp because I will premiere the second chapter of Until Today. Until then, please subscribe and comment all the special comments you will see next, and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye!